Welcome to Story Station, Season 2, Episode 11. In this episode, you can listen to 2 Hawaiian stories. The first story is titled, As Heiau Builders. This short story tells of the hard-working Menehunes building the temples of Hawaii. The second story is titled, Laka's Adventure. Laka is trying to make a canoe to find his father, but the wood keeps mysteriously disappearing. Hope you enjoy it! I will read a story called As Heiau Builders. The Menehunes are credited with the construction of numerous heiaus, or ancient temples, in various parts of the islands. The heiau of Mukini, near Honopio, Kuhala, is pointed out as an instance of their marvelous work. The place selected for the site of the temple was on a grassy plain. The stones in the nearest neighborhood were for some reason not deemed suitable for the work, so those of the Pololu Valley, distant some 12 miles, were selected. Tradition says that the Menehunes were placed in a line covering the entire distance from Pololu to Honopio, whereby the stones were passed from hand to hand for the entire work. Work was begun at the quiet of night, and at the cock-crow in the morning it was finished. Thus, in one night, the heiau of Mokini was built. Another temple of their erection was at the Hilo. The peculiarity of the work being that the stones had been brought together by the residents of that part of the district, by the direction of the chief, but that in one night the Menehunes gathered together and built it. The chief and his people were surprised, on coming the next morning to resume their labors, to find the heiau completed. There stands, on the pali of Waikolu, near Kalaupapa, Molokai, a heiau that the Hawaiians believe to have been constructed by no one else than the Menehunes. It is on top of a ledge in the face of a perpendicular cliff, with a continuous, inaccessible cliff behind it, reaching hundreds of feet above. No one has ever been able to reach it either, from above or from below. And the marvel is how the material, which appears to be seashore stones, was put in place. Oh, the 4,000 gods, the 40,000 gods, the 400,000 gods, the file of gods, the assembly of gods! O gods of these woods, of the mountain and the knoll, at the water dam, O come! The end. I hope you enjoyed this story. The next story begins in a moment. I will read a story called Laka's Adventure. Wahiloa, a chief, lived at Kalakoi, Kipahulu, Maui. He took him to a wife named Hinahoea, and in due time a boy was born to them, whom Hinahoana, the mother of Hinahoea, brought up under her own care at Alaunui. She called him Laka a Wahiloa. He was greatly petted by his parents. One day his father went to Hawaii in search of the Alakuila Akan for a toy for his son, landing at Punaluu Kau, Hawaii, where he was killed in a cave called Kiana a Kualehu. After a long absence, Laka asked for his father, and his mother referred him to his grandmother, who, on being questioned, told him that his father had went to Hawaii and was supposed to be dead. Laka then asked for means by which he could search for his father. His grandmother replied, Go to the mountains and look for the tree that has leaves shaped like the moon on the night of Hilo or Hoaka. Such is the tree for a canoe." Laka followed this advice and went to the mountains to find the tree for his canoe. Finding a suitable one, he commenced to cut in the morning, and by sundown he had felled it to the ground. This accomplished, he went home. Returning the next day, to his surprise, he could not find the fallen tree, so he cut down another, with the same result. Laka was thus tricked for several days, and in his perplexity consulted again with his grandmother, who sent him off with the same advice as before, to look for the crescent-shaped leaf. He went to the mountains again, and found the desired tree, but before cutting it, he dug a big hole on the side, where the kalala kamahile would fall. Upon cutting the tree, it fell right into the hole, as designed. Then he jumped into it, and lay in waiting for the person or persons who was re-erecting the trees he had cut down for his canoe. While thus waiting, he heard someone talking about raising the tree and returning it to its former position, and followed by someone chanting as follows: "I ka mano o ke akua, ke kini o ke akua, ka lehu o ke akua, ka lalani akua, ka pukui akua, I na akua o ke kuahi we ne, I ka moana I ke kualono, I ka maunawai lea I ho." When this appeal ended, there was a hum and a noise, and in a short time the place was filled with a band of people, who endeavored to lift the tree, but it would not move. Laka then jumped out of his place of hiding, and caught hold of two of the men, Mokuhali and Kapaiki, and threatened to kill them for raising again the trees he had cut for his canoe. Mokuhali then told Laka that if they were killed, nobody would be able to make a canoe for him, nor would anybody pull it to the beach. But if they were spared, they would do it willingly for him, provided Laka would first build a big and long shed, or halau, of sufficient size to hold the canoe and prepare sufficient food for the men. Laka, gladly consenting, released them and returned to his home and built a shed on the level ground of Puhikau. He went up to the woods and saw the canoe ready and complete. The Menehunes told Laka that it would be brought to the halau at that night. At the dead of night, the hum of the voices of the Menehunes was heard. This was the commencement of the lifting of the canoe. It was not dragged, but held up by hand. The second hum of voices brought the canoe to Halauamiki at Pueo. At the third hum, the canoe was carefully laid down in the halau. Food and fish were spread out for the workers, the ha of the taro for food, the ope and upu for fish. At dawn, the Menehunes returned to their home. Kwahalau was the name of the halau, and the remains of the foundation, of which were to be seen a few years ago, but it is now ploughed over. The hole dug by Laka still exists. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story. Thank you for listening to Story Station. We are adding stories as frequently as possible, so check back often. We would love to hear your feedback and any questions you may have. Thank you.